I was staring down at the woman on the gurney, her face pale and her breathing shallow, and for a split second, I didn't even recognize the person who had once been my entire world. It had been 5 long, silent years since my parents looked me in the eye and told me I was dead to them, all because of a calculated lie spun by the very person now fighting for her life under my care. I had a choice to make in that sterile, white-walled emergency room, and it wasn't just a medical one. It was a choice between the oath I took as a doctor and the cold, hard resentment I'd been nursing since I was 22. Was I wrong for even hesitating when I saw her name on that chart? Or would you have felt that same sudden, icy surge of vindication mixed with absolute horror? I need you to listen to how we got here, because this isn't just a story about a family feud. It's about how a single lie can incinerate a lifetime of love and leave you rising from the ashes as a stranger to your own blood. Tell me, if the person who destroyed your reputation and stole your future was suddenly the one person you had the power to save, what would you do? The whole mess started during my senior year of college. I was the golden child of the family, or at least that's what my sister, Maya, always called me with a sneer. I was pre-med, pulling all-nighters and working 2 jobs to make sure I didn't drown in student loans, while Maya was the free spirit, the one who lived for the weekend and always seemed to find herself in some kind of drama. My parents, David and Alina, were old school. They valued hard work and integrity above everything else, which is why when the accusations started, the fall was so steep. It was a Saturday morning when the world ended. I came home for my mom's birthday, expecting cake and a quiet weekend, but instead I walked into a courtroom. Maya was sitting on the sofa, her eyes red and puffy, clutching a tissue like it was a lifeline. My parents were standing over her, looking at me with a level of disgust I had never seen directed at anyone, let alone their only son. Maya had told them that I had stolen over $10,000 from her college fund, money my grandparents had left specifically for her, to pay off a gambling debt I didn't even have. She had fabricated bank statements, created fake text threads between me and some imaginary bookie, and even managed to find my hidden stash of cash in my old bedroom, which was actually money she had hidden there herself after stealing it from the account. I stood there, paralyzed, as my father threw the printed evidence at my feet. I tried to explain that I didn't even know how to place a bet, that I was barely sleeping because of organic chemistry, but they wouldn't hear it. Maya's performance was Oscar-worthy. She sobbed about how she was scared of me, how I had threatened her if she told them, and how she just wanted her brother back. My father, a man of few words but deep convictions, told me to leave. He didn't just tell me to go back to school. He told me to never come back. He said they were cutting off my tuition, my phone plan, and my right to call myself a member of the family. I remember looking at Maya as I walked toward the door, and for just a fraction of a second, her sobbing stopped, and she gave me this look, a look of pure, unadulterated triumph. She didn't want the money, she wanted the throne. She wanted to be the one they loved most, and she was willing to bury me alive to get it. I spent the next 5 years in a survival mode blur. I took out massive loans, worked 3 jobs while finishing my degree, and slept in my car for a semester. I got into med school on sheer spite and coffee. I didn't send Christmas cards, I didn't call on birthdays, and when I heard through a distant cousin that Maya had dropped out of school and was traveling, I didn't even blink. I was dead, remember. By the time I was a resident in one of the busiest ERs in the city, I had built a new life. I had a fiancé, a small apartment that smelled like eucalyptus instead of disappointment, and a career that I loved. I was Dr. Miller, a man with a steady hand and a calm voice. But then the sirens started. It was a Tuesday night, raining, the kind of night where the trauma bay never stays empty for more than 10 minutes. The paramedics wheeled in a Jane Doe from a high-speed collision. She was covered in glass, blood, and the smell of cheap tequila. As I stepped up to the gurney to begin the primary survey, I brushed the hair out of her face to check her pupils. My heart didn't just skip a beat, it stopped. It was Maya. She looked older, haggard, and broken, but it was her. My hands started to shake, a physical reaction I hadn't felt in years. My head nurse, Sarah, asked me if I was okay, and I had to force my lungs to take in air. This was the person who had sat on that sofa and watched my life burn. This was the girl who had let our parents think I was a thief and a thug, and now she was under my knife. So that is the crossroads I found myself in. I was standing there with the power to give her the best care possible, or to let a mistake happen, or even just to step aside and let someone else handle it. I had the life and death power over the person who tried to ruin me. Before I tell you what happened when my parents showed up at the hospital an hour later, I want you to pause. Seriously, go to the comments right now. If you were me, after 5 years of being disowned and disgraced because of a lie, would you have treated her with the same care as any other patient, or would you have walked out of that room? What does justice look like in a situation like this? I didn't walk out. I couldn't, not because I'm a saint, but because I worked too hard for that white coat to let her take that from me too. I stabilized her. I spent 4 hours in surgery repairing a ruptured spleen and dealing with internal bleeding that would have killed her in another 20 minutes. I was clinical, cold, and perfect. When she was finally moved to the ICU, I went to the waiting room. I saw them immediately. My parents. They looked smaller than I remembered. Grayer. They were huddled together in the corner, looking terrified. When I walked up, my father stood up, his mouth opening to ask for an update, but then he recognized me. The shock on his face was almost comical. He looked at my badge, then at my face, then back at the badge. I didn't give them a hug. I didn't offer a smile. I just gave them the medical facts. I told them Maya was stable, that she had been driving under the influence, and that she had narrowly avoided permanent spinal damage. My mother started to cry, reaching out to touch my arm, but I stepped back. I told them that as her attending physician, I had done my job, but as their son, I had nothing to say. The next morning, Maya woke up. She was terrified and in pain, but she was alive. My parents were there. And for the first time in 5 years, the truth finally started to leak out. Maybe it was the trauma, or maybe it was the guilt of seeing me be the one to save her, but Maya crumbled. She confessed. Right there in the ICU, with me standing at the foot of the bed taking notes, she admitted she had gambled away the money herself on some online scheme and pinned it on me because she knew they'd believe the perfect son had a secret dark side before they'd believe she was a failure. The silence in that room was heavier than any lead apron I've ever worn. My father looked like he'd been struck by lightning. He turned to me, his voice cracking, and tried to apologize. He started talking about making it right and coming home for dinner. I let him finish, and then I did something I'd practiced in my head 1,000 times. I told them that the son they had disowned was gone. I told them that I saved Maya because it was my job, not because we were family. I explained that while I forgave them for my own peace of mind, I didn't want them in my life. You don't get to throw someone away like trash and then expect them to be your hero when you realize you were wrong. I walked out of that hospital room and I didn't look back. Maya survived, and from what I hear, she's in rehab now, and my parents are trying to sell their house to pay for her legal fees from the accident. They send me letters every month, letters I put straight into the shredder without opening. People tell me life is short and that I should reconcile, but they didn't feel the cold of that car floor when I had nowhere to go. They didn't feel the shame of being called a thief by their own father. I found my own family, and they don't require me to prove my innocence every single day. I saved her life, and in doing so, I finally ended that chapter of mine. I think the moral here is that blood might be thicker than water, but respect and trust are the only things that actually keep a family together. Once those are gone, you're just strangers with the same last name. Like this video if you think I did the right thing by walking away, or if you think I was too harsh. Subscribe for more stories about people finding their strength in the darkest places. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'm curious if you think family always deserves a second chance, no matter the cost. I'll see you all in the next story.